The year is 2242. Earth, now a proud member of the Galactic Federation, sends its brightest young minds to the United Galactic Academy. Here, humans learn alongside species from 1,000 different worlds, forging bonds and preparing to defend the galaxy. Among them is Cadet Eva Rostova, a young woman from the steppes of Russia, with eyes as sharp as winter ice and a spirit forged in the fires of ambition. Eva wasn't the biggest or the strongest, but she possessed a mind that could unravel complex strategies in seconds and a will of iron. She excelled in her classes, particularly in tactical simulations and close combat. But her directness and refusal to back down often rubbed some of her instructors, especially those from species with more rigid social hierarchies, the wrong way. One such instructor was General Xylar, a veteran of the Zargonian Empire. Xylar was a towering figure, his chitinous armor gleaming under the academy lights. He possessed centuries of combat experience and a disdain for what he considered the humans' lack of discipline. He saw them as impulsive, emotional, and lacking the respect due to their superiors. From day one, Xylar had it out for Eva. He would constantly call her out in class, criticize her performance, and assign her extra drills. Eva endured it all, with a stoic expression, her focus solely on mastering her skills. She knew that Xylar's prejudice was his problem, not hers, and she wouldn't let it distract her from her goals. The breaking point came during a combat exercise. The cadets were divided into teams and tasked with capturing a simulated enemy base. Eva, leading her team, devised a daring strategy that involved flanking the enemy and exploiting a weakness in their defenses. The simulation was going perfectly. Her team was on the verge of victory. Xylar, observing from the control room, couldn't stand it. He hated seeing a human, especially Eva, outsmarting his carefully designed scenario. He stormed onto the training grounds, his voice booming across the simulated battlefield. "Rostova!" he roared. "Cease your maneuvers at once. Your tactics are reckless and undisciplined." Eva stopped, turning to face the general. "Sir, with all due respect, we are about to achieve our objective." "Silence!" Xylar bellowed, his mandibles clicking in anger. "You will follow my orders. Fall back and regroup." Eva stood her ground, her eyes meeting Xylar's. "Sir, that would compromise our mission. We are too close to victory." Xylar's patience finally snapped. He strode towards Eva, his massive frame casting a shadow over her. "You dare to disobey a direct order, Cadet?" "I am following the mission parameters, sir," Eva replied, her voice steady despite the palpable tension in the air. In a move that shocked everyone present, Xylar raised his hand and slapped Eva across the face. The sound echoed through the training grounds, silencing the simulated gunfire and the shouts of the other cadets. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Eva's face burned with the sting of the blow, but her eyes remained locked on Xylar's. The other cadets gasped, unsure of what to do. No one had ever seen an instructor physically assault a student before. Then, in a blur of motion, Eva reacted. Years of training, honed reflexes, and a lifetime of pent-up frustration surged to the surface. She didn't hesitate, didn't flinch, didn't even blink. She moved like a viper striking its prey. Eva stepped inside Xylar's reach, avoiding his clumsy attempt to grab her. She grabbed his wrist with both hands, her grip surprisingly strong. Using a technique she had learned from an ancient Earth martial art, she twisted his arm with brutal efficiency. A sickening crack filled the air. Xylar roared in pain, his chitinous armor unable to protect him from the force of Eva's counterattack. His wrist, designed to crush planets, was now shattered, the bones pulverized. He staggered back, clutching his injured arm, his face contorted in agony and disbelief. He looked at Eva, his eyes wide with shock and a dawning realization of the power she possessed. Eva stood her ground, her chest heaving, her eyes blazing with defiance. "That," she said, her voice low and dangerous, "is for disrespecting me, for underestimating me, and for thinking you could get away with abusing your power." The other cadets watched in stunned silence. They had never seen anything like it. A human, a mere cadet, had just taken down a seasoned Zargonian general in a matter of seconds. The silence was broken by the arrival of Academy security. Two heavily armed guards rushed onto the scene, their weapons trained on Eva and Zyla. "What is the meaning of this?" barked the lead guard, a hulking Krogan warrior. "General Zylar assaulted Cadet Rostova," another cadet spoke up. "She acted in self-defense." The guards quickly assessed the situation. They saw the shattered bones protruding from Zylar's wrist, the look of shock and pain on his face, and the steely determination in Eva's eyes. They lowered their weapons, turning their attention to Zylar. "General, you are under arrest for assaulting a student." Zylar, still reeling from the pain and humiliation, could only sputter in protest. He was led away in cuffs, his reputation in tatters. Eva was taken to the infirmary for a medical evaluation. She was cleared of any serious injuries, but the incident left her shaken. She sat alone in her room, wondering what the future held. The news of the incident spread like wildfire throughout the academy. Some cadets were horrified by Eva's actions, seeing it as a blatant act of insubordination. Others, however, hailed her as a hero, a symbol of human resilience and defiance against oppression. The Academy Board launched an investigation into the matter. They reviewed the security footage, interviewed witnesses, and examined Zylar's past record. What they found was a pattern of abuse and discrimination against human cadets. In the end, Zylar was stripped of his rank and expelled from the Academy. He was sent back to the Zargonian Empire in disgrace. Eva, on the other hand, was exonerated. The board ruled that she had acted in self-defense and that her actions were justified given the circumstances. However, she was also given a formal reprimand for using excessive force. Despite the reprimand, Eva's reputation soared. She became a legend among the human cadets, a symbol of their strength and their refusal to be intimidated.
She continued her studies, excelling in all her classes. The incident also had a profound impact on the Academy's policies. The board implemented new regulations to protect students from abuse and discrimination. They also increased the emphasis
on cultural sensitivity and understanding in the curriculum. Eva Rostova went on to graduate from the United Galactic Academy with honors. She joined the Galactic Federation fleet and quickly rose through the ranks, becoming a renowned commander known for her tactical brilliance and her unwavering courage. She never forgot the day she broke General Zylar's wrist. It was a reminder that even the most powerful individuals can be brought down by those who are willing to stand up for what is right. It was also a testament to the strength and resilience of the human spirit, a spirit that would one day help to shape the destiny of the galaxy. The year is 2242. Humans had officially joined the Galactic Federation a decade earlier, and the initial honeymoon period was definitely over. Cadet Anya Petrova stood ramrod straight on the parade ground of the Federation Military Academy on Ganymede, the icy moon of Jupiter. The biting wind whipped at her face, turning her cheeks red, but she didn't flinch. Beside her, rows upon rows of cadets from a dozen different worlds stood in equally rigid attention. Today was the day the recruits would be formally assessed by the Grand General of the Zargonian Armada, Zylar Bloodfang. Zylar was a legend, a veteran of countless campaigns, a warrior whose name was whispered in awe and fear across the galaxy. He was also notoriously impatient and had a low tolerance for incompetence. Anya, despite her outward composure, felt a knot of anxiety tighten in her stomach. She was a top student in her class, excelling in combat tactics, xenolinguistics, and astrophysics. But she was also human, and humans were still viewed with suspicion by many in the Federation. Some saw them as too aggressive, too ambitious, too unpredictable. Anya was determined to prove them wrong. The air crackled with anticipation as Zylar's personal transport touched down on the edge of the parade ground. The ramp hissed open, and the Zargonian general emerged. He was an imposing figure, easily 8 feet tall, with thick, armored plates covering his body and a pair of wickedly sharp tusks protruding from his lower jaw. His eyes, cold and reptilian, scanned the assembled cadets with unsettling intensity. Xylar was accompanied by a retinue of officers, including a lean, elegant Illyrian captain named Lyra, whose silver skin shimmered in the sunlight, and a hulking, granite-skinned Gromac sergeant named Grok. The entourage moved with practiced precision, their footsteps echoing across the parade ground. The general stopped before the first row of cadets, his gaze lingering on each individual for a moment, before moving on. He barked orders in guttural Zargonian, which Lyra translated into Federation Standard. Present arms. The cadets snapped to attention, their laser rifles held high. Xylar circled them, his eyes like chips of ice. He stopped in front of a nervous-looking Valerian cadet whose antennae twitched uncontrollably. "You! What is the primary weakness of the Krill battle strategy?" Xylar demanded. The Valerian stammered, his voice barely audible. Their reliance on swarm tactics?" Xylar snorted. "Inadequate. They are vulnerable to concentrated energy weapons. You are dismissed." The Valerian cadet wilted, shamefaced, and shuffled to the back of the formation. Xylar continued his inspection, grilling the cadets on everything from weapons maintenance to interstellar navigation. One by one, they faltered, their confidence crumbling under the general's relentless scrutiny. Finally, he stopped in front of Anya. He looked her up and down, his expression unreadable. "Human," he said, his voice a low growl. "What is your name?" "Cadet Anya Petrova, sir," Anya replied, her voice clear and steady. "You are small," Xylar observed, his eyes narrowing. "Do you believe you have the strength to serve in the Zargonian armada?" Anya met his gaze unflinchingly. "Strength is not solely a matter of size, sir. I am resourceful, adaptable, and I will not yield." Xylar seemed slightly taken aback by her response. A flicker of something that might have been amusement crossed his face. "Resourceful, are you? Let us see." He raised his hand suddenly and slapped Anya across the face. The force of the blow sent her staggering. A collective gasp went up from the other cadets. No one had ever dared to strike a cadet, let alone during an official inspection. Anya felt a searing pain in her cheek, and her ears rang. But she refused to fall. She refused to show weakness. For a moment, she stood there, swaying slightly, her eyes blazing with anger. Then, in a move that no one, least of all Xylar, expected, she retaliated. Faster than the eye could follow, she grabbed Xylar's wrist with both hands. Using her knowledge of pressure points and leverage, she twisted. A sickening crack echoed. Across the parade ground, Xylar roared in pain, clutching his wrist, his face contorted with rage and disbelief. Lyra and Grok surged forward, weapons drawn, but hesitated, unsure of what to do. Anya released Xylar's wrist. "That," she said, her voice cold and hard, "is how a human fights." Silence descended upon the parade ground. The only sound was Xylar's ragged breathing. He stared at Anya, his eyes burning with fury. Everyone expected him to order her immediate arrest, or worse. But then, something unexpected happened. Xylar began to laugh, a deep, booming laugh that shook his massive frame. "By the stars," he said, wiping tears from his eyes. "I have not been bested like that in centuries." He turned to Lyra. "Get the medic to look at this minor inconvenience, and tell them to prepare a commendation for Cadet Petrova." Lyra and Grok exchanged bewildered glances. But General," Lyra stammered, "she assaulted you." "She defended herself," Xylar corrected. "And she did it with remarkable skill. This is exactly the kind of spirit we need in the Armada. A warrior who is not afraid to stand up for herself, regardless of the odds." He turned back to Anya, a grudging respect in his eyes. "Petrova, you have impressed me. You have shown me that humans are not to be underestimated. I expect great things from you." Anya stood at attention, her face still flushed, but her eyes shining with triumph. "Thank you, sir." The rest of the inspection proceeded without incident. Xylar seemed to have a newfound appreciation for the human cadets, and he even cracked a few jokes. The atmosphere on the parade ground shifted from one of fear and apprehension to one of cautious optimism. As Xylar's transport prepared to depart, he paused before entering. He looked at Anya one last time. "Remember, Petrova," he said, "strength is not just about physical power. It is about courage, resilience, and the will to never give up. Never forget that." With that, he stepped inside, and the transport lifted off, leaving Anya standing on the parade ground, the wind whipping through her hair. She had passed the test. She had earned the respect of the most feared general in the galaxy, and she had proven that humans, despite their differences, had a place in the Galactic Federation. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, setbacks, and prejudices to overcome. But Anya Petrova was ready. She was a human, and she was a warrior, and she would not yield. The galaxy would know her name. The galaxy would know the strength of humanity. The year is 2242. Humans, after a rocky start, had finally earned their place in the Galactic Federation. Cadet Ilara Reyes, a young woman barely out of her teens, stood tall amidst the alien throng at the United Galactic Military Academy. She was a prodigy, hand-picked for her strategic mind and combat skills. But even with all her training, nothing could have prepared her for General Xylar. Xylar was a Krogan, a species known for their brute strength and battle prowess. He was a legend in the Federation, a veteran of countless wars, and now the Academy's most feared instructor. His thick, leathery skin was scarred with the marks of battles fought across galaxies. His eyes, cold and reptilian, seemed to pierce through any facade. Ilara had always been a little intimidated by Xylar, but she respected him. She understood that his methods, though harsh, were designed to forge the best soldiers in the galaxy. However, their uneasy truce shattered on one fateful training exercise. The exercise simulated a planetary invasion. The cadets, divided into teams, had to defend a mock city against a superior alien force. Ilara, as the team leader, devised a strategy that relied on agility and tactical traps. She planned to use the city's narrow streets and hidden tunnels to her advantage, turning the invaders' superior numbers against them. But Xylar wasn't impressed. He watched from the observation deck, his face a mask of disapproval. "Humans," he growled into the comms, his voice echoing across the training grounds, "always relying on trickery. Where is the strength? Where is the courage to face your enemy head-on?" Ilara bristled at the criticism. She believed her strategy was sound, and she was confident it would work. But Xylar's words planted a seed of doubt in her mind. As the simulation progressed, her team executed her plan flawlessly. They used the city's layout to ambush the invaders, picking them off one by one. But Xylar remained unimpressed. Finally, as Ilara's team secured the final objective, Xylar stormed onto the training ground, his massive frame casting a long shadow over the weary cadets. "This is not how warriors fight," he roared, his voice shaking the very foundations of the mock city. "You hid like cowards preying on the weak. This is not the way of the Federation." Ilara stood her ground, her eyes meeting Xylar's cold gaze. "General," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart, "we achieved the objective with minimal casualties. Isn't that the point of warfare?" Xylar sneered. "The point of warfare is to crush your enemy, to break their will. You have shown no such strength, no such dominance." He stepped closer to Ilara, his towering figure looming over her. "You disgust me, human." Then, Without warning, he lashed out. His hand, the size of a dinner plate, moved with surprising speed, aiming a stinging slap at Ilara's face. It was a calculated move, designed to humiliate and intimidate. But Xylar had underestimated Ilara. Years of rigorous training had honed her reflexes to razor sharpness. She saw the blow coming, and in a split second, her mind raced through a series of calculations. She couldn't dodge the attack completely, but she could redirect it. As Xylar's hand neared her face, Ilara moved with lightning speed. She twisted her body, using her momentum to deflect the blow. Instead of striking her cheek, Xylar's hand glanced off her shoulder. But that was all Ilara needed. In the same fluid motion, she grabbed Xylar's wrist, her fingers locking in a precise grip. Then, with a surge of adrenaline-fueled strength, she applied pressure to specific points along his arm. It was a technique she had learned from an ancient martial art, designed to disable opponents with minimal force. Xylar roared in pain as a searing agony shot up his arm. He tried to pull away, but Ilara's grip was unyielding. In 4 seconds, she had executed the maneuver with surgical precision. A sickening crack echoed through the training ground as Xylar's wrist snapped. The Krogan general stumbled back, clutching his injured wrist, his face contorted in a mixture of pain and disbelief. He stared at Ilara, his eyes wide with shock. "What? What did you do?" he gasped. Ilara released his wrist, stepping back and assuming a defensive stance. "I defended myself, General," she said, her voice calm and steady. "You attacked me." A stunned silence fell over the training ground. The other cadets watched in disbelief as the legendary General Xylar nursed his broken wrist, defeated by a human cadet half his size. The aftermath was chaotic. Medics rushed to Xylar's aid while Academy officials scrambled to assess the situation. An investigation was launched, and Ilara was summoned to explain her actions. She recounted the events of the training exercise, emphasizing Xylar's unprovoked attack. She explained her defensive maneuver, demonstrating the precise technique she had used to disable him. The investigators were skeptical. How could a human, especially a young cadet, possibly break the wrist of a Krogan general? But as they reviewed the training footage, they saw the truth. Ilara's movements were precise, her timing impeccable. She had acted in self-defense, using her skills to neutralize a threat. The council ruled in Ilara's favor, acknowledging her right to defend herself against an unwarranted assault. But the incident had far-reaching consequences. Xylar, humiliated and injured, was forced to take a leave of absence. His reputation, once untouchable, was tarnished. As for Ilara, she became an overnight sensation. News of her feat spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Some hailed her as a hero, a symbol of human resilience and strength. Others viewed her with suspicion, fearing the potential of a species capable of defeating a Krogan general in hand-to-hand combat. Ilara continued her training at the academy, but she was no longer just another cadet. She was a symbol, a legend in the making. She had proven that humans, despite their physical limitations, could stand toe-to-toe with the strongest warriors in the galaxy. But Ilara knew that her journey had just begun. She had a long way to go, before she could truly earn her place in the Federation. And she knew that there would be many more challenges ahead, many more enemies to face. But she was ready. She had stared down a Krogan general and broken his wrist in 4 seconds. She was ready for anything. The year is 2242. Humans have finally earned their place among the stars, joining the Galactic Federation, a loose alliance of species from across the Milky Way. But acceptance doesn't come easy. They were often looked down upon by the older, more civilized races. This was especially true in the Federation's Joint Military Academy, where young cadets from different worlds trained together. Cadet Eva Rostova was a rising star at the academy. She was strong, quick-witted, and possessed an uncanny ability to strategize. But she also had a temper, which she struggled to control. This was the reason why she was often in trouble with her superiors. One day, a new group of alien cadets arrived, including General Xylar, a decorated officer from the Zargonian Empire. The Zargonians were known for their arrogance and disdain for other species, especially humans, whom they considered primitive and barbaric. From day one, General Xylar made it clear that he didn't think much of humanity. He would often make snide remarks about their physical appearance, their technology, and their lack of culture. Eva tried to ignore him, but his constant insults eventually got under her skin. One afternoon, during a joint training exercise, Xylar pushed things too far. The exercise involved a simulated planetary invasion, with the cadets divided into teams of attackers and defenders. Eva was assigned to the defending team, and she quickly formulated a plan to repel the invaders. However, Xylar, who was leading the attacking team, decided to ignore the simulation's parameters and launched a full-scale assault on the humans' position. Eva and her team were caught off guard, but they quickly rallied and began to fight back. Despite being outnumbered, Eva used her knowledge of the terrain and her tactical skills to inflict heavy casualties on the attacking force. Xylar became increasingly frustrated as his plans were thwarted at every turn. Finally, in a moment of blind rage, Xylar confronted Eva on the battlefield. "You humans are all the same," he snarled. "You're nothing but a bunch of savages who got lucky." Eva's eyes flashed with anger. "We may not be as old as your empire, General," she said, "but we're not afraid to stand up for ourselves." "Is that so?" Xylar sneered. "Then prove it." Before Eva could react, Xylar lashed out and slapped her across the face. The force of the blow sent her stumbling backward. The other cadets gasped in shock. No one had ever dared to strike a fellow officer, especially not in front of everyone. For a moment, Eva was stunned. She couldn't believe that Xylar had actually hit her. But as the pain subsided, her anger returned, stronger than ever before. Without a word, Eva straightened up and glared at Xylar. Her eyes were like ice, and her face was set in a mask of fury. Xylar seemed to realize that he had made a mistake. He took a step back, but it was too late. In a blur of motion, Eva lunged forward and grabbed Xylar's wrist. Using a combination of martial arts techniques she had learned during her training, she twisted his arm in a way that no Zargonian had ever experienced. A sharp crack echoed through the training ground as Xylar's wrist snapped. He screamed in agony and fell to his knees, clutching his injured arm. Eva stood over him, her chest heaving. "Next time, General," she said, her voice dangerously low, "think twice before you lay your hands on a human." The other cadets stared at Eva in awe. They had never seen anything like it. A human, a mere cadet, had just taken down a decorated Zargonian general in a matter of seconds. News of the incident spread like wildfire throughout the academy. Some cadets were shocked by Eva's actions, while others cheered her on. But everyone agreed on one thing. Eva Rostova was not someone to be messed with. The academy commandant, a stern but fair Andorian officer, was forced to launch an investigation into the incident. After reviewing the evidence and interviewing witnesses, he came to a difficult decision. While he acknowledged that Xylar had provoked the situation with his insults and his violation of the training exercise parameters, he couldn't condone Eva's use of excessive force. He sentenced Xylar to a period of suspension and ordered him to undergo anger management therapy. Eva, on the other hand, was given a formal reprimand and placed on probation. Despite the reprimand, Eva became a hero among the human cadets. They saw her as a symbol of their defiance against the prejudice and discrimination they faced from the other species. She proved that humans were not weak or inferior, and that they were willing to fight for their place in the galaxy. The incident also had a profound impact on Xylar. After his wrist healed, he returned to his duties, but he was a changed man. He was no longer as arrogant or condescending as he had been before. He even started to show some respect for the human cadets, recognizing their strength and resilience. Years later, Eva and Xylar found themselves serving together on a Federation peacekeeping mission to a volatile region of space. They had both risen in the ranks, Eva becoming a captain and Xylar a full general. Despite their past differences, they learned to work together, respecting each other's skills and abilities. They even developed a grudging friendship. One day, during a particularly dangerous mission, Eva found herself in a life-threatening situation. She was surrounded by enemy forces, and her ship was badly damaged. Just when she thought all hope was lost, Xylar arrived with a squadron of Zargonian fighters. He risked his own life to rescue Eva and her crew, turning the tide of the battle and saving the day. Afterward, Eva thanked Xylar for his bravery. "We all make mistakes, Rostova," Xylar said with a wry smile. "The important thing is to learn from them." Eva nodded. "I guess we both learned something that day at the academy," she said. "Indeed," Xylar replied. "I learned never to underestimate a human, and you learned that sometimes a broken wrist is the only way to get someone's attention," Eva finished with a grin. They both laughed, realizing that their shared history, with all its conflicts and challenges, had ultimately brought them closer together. They were no longer just cadets from different worlds, but comrades in arms, fighting for a better future for the galaxy. And it all started with a slap and a broken wrist. In the year 2145, Earth had become part of a vast alliance of planets known as the United Coalition. Humans, once a single planet species, now coexisted with aliens from various galaxies. The coalition fostered peace and cooperation, but it was not without its challenges. Training for the intergalactic military was the biggest challenge of all, and that's where our story begins. At the Alliance Training Center, a huge facility located on the icy planet of Xylon, young cadets prepared for their future roles. Among them was Cadet Mia Thompson, a determined 19-year-old from Earth. Mia had always dreamed of becoming a soldier and serving her world. She was tough, smart, and never backed down from a challenge. Mia had her sights set on becoming an elite member of the Coalition forces. Today, they would meet General Yorlock, a towering alien with green scales and 4 muscular arms. He was known for his fierce but fair leadership. The cadets gathered. In the huge training hall, excitement buzzing in the air. Mia stood among her fellow trainees, her heartbeat quickening as she watched the general stride in. "Cadets!" Yorlock's voice boomed, filling the hall. "Today you will learn the importance of discipline. I will demonstrate how not to let your emotions control you." Yorlock had a reputation for being tough on discipline. He believed that emotions could lead to mistakes on the battlefield. Mia had respect for him, but she also thought the way he spoke was too harsh. She whispered to her friend, Jake, "I wonder how he handles stress. It can't be easy." Jake chuckled. "You can say that again. Just look at him. I wouldn't want to be on his bad side." The general started the training by showing them combat techniques. He paired them off and ordered them to spar. Mia found herself facing off against another cadet, a tall boy named Levi. They exchanged moves, each trying to gain the upper hand. Mia was quick and agile, and she managed to score a hit. Suddenly, Yorlock called out, "Stop! Change partners. I want to see each of you displaying your best form." Mia's heart raced as she was ordered to spar with General Yorlock himself. The room fell silent, all eyes glued to them. She couldn't believe it. Sparring with a general was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but the pressure was overwhelming. Yorlock stood before her, his eyes piercing. "Cadet Thompson, I expect you to give your all. Show me you have what it takes to serve in the Coalition." "Yes, sir!" Mia shouted, determination surging inside her. As they began to spar, the general moved with startling speed. He extended one of his many arms to swipe at Mia. She ducked but felt the rush of air as his hand passed. Without thinking, she retaliated with a quick kick to his side. He was caught off guard, but it only fueled his anger. "Do not let emotions cloud your judgment," Yorlock shouted, clearly furious. Mia's cheeks flushed. She hadn't meant to anger him, but she felt the challenge rising inside her. Yorlock swung again, but this time she was ready. She grabbed his arm and twisted. In just a few seconds, she moved behind him, using her strength and agility to control his wrist. The cadets gasped in disbelief. In mere moments, she had flipped the situation and pinned the great general to the ground. "Submit, General," Mia exclaimed, her voice strong and confident. For a second, the room was silent. Then Yorlock began to struggle to break free, but it was too late. Mia's grip was firm and unyielding. In just 4 seconds, she had taken control. The cadets burst into applause, shocked by what they had just witnessed. Finally, Yorlock relented, raising his other hand in defeat. "All right, Cadet Thompson, you win this round," he admitted, though his voice still held authority. "But you will pay for your audacity." Mia released her hold and stepped back. She was panting from the effort, but also filled with exhilaration. Surrounded by her peers, she felt like a hero. But Yorlock was not done yet. "Meet me in the combat room at noon," he commanded. "There will be consequences for this incident." The time came, and Mia found herself in the room, feeling both anticipation and apprehension. She waited nervously, wondering what the general would ask of her. The minutes dragged, but finally Yorlock entered. He looked even more imposing than before. "Cadet Thompson, your skill is commendable, but you must learn to respect authority," he said, his voice low. "You will have to spar with me again, but this time, the winner will not be decided so easily." Mia nodded, understanding. This was a chance for improvement. They got into position, and the atmosphere turned electric with tension. This time, Yorlock moved faster, throwing combination strikes. Mia ducked and weaved, trying to stay on her feet. She finally found an opening and struck back, but he seemed to anticipate her every move. They danced in a fierce rhythm, with each of them trying to gain the upper hand. Sweat streamed down Mia's face, but she pressed on. After several rounds, she finally found a moment of weakness in Yorlock's stance. With a swift motion, she struck his wrist, knocking him off balance. He stumbled, but instead of giving up, he retaliated. In an instant, he attempted to grab her again. Mia was ready. She sidestepped, elbowed him in the midsection, and slammed him to the ground. The shock in the room was palpable once more. He lay there for a moment, stunned. Slowly he got up, visibly impressed. "You have proven yourself, Cadet Thompson. Your strength lies not just in your skill, but in your spirit. Remember this day." Mia's heart swelled with pride. From that day on, General Yorlock became her mentor. He taught her the balance of strength and strategy, and they formed a bond of respect. The other cadets looked up to them, knowing they had witnessed something extraordinary. And so, a new chapter began for both Mia Thompson and General Yorlock. Together they trained hard, showing that even the toughest challenges could be met with courage and teamwork. In a distant future, on a vast space station named Astra Nova, humans and aliens lived together. The station served as a hub for training young cadets from various species. Among them was Astra, a determined human cadet with bright blue eyes and long brown hair. She had come to Astra Nova to prove herself, to show that humans could be just as strong as any alien. One day, the cadets gathered for an important training session. The instructor was General Zorak, a towering figure from a race known as the Gorgons. The Gorgons were feared throughout the galaxy for their strength and skill in battle. Zorak had a reputation for being tough, and stories about his intensity had spread among the cadets like wildfire. Astra stood at the front of the training hall, her heart pounding with excitement and fear. She had heard the tales of General Zorak and how he often tested the limits of his trainees. As the other cadets whispered and giggled among themselves, Astra focused on her goal. She wanted to impress the general. Attention. Zorak's deep voice boomed through the hall as he entered. The noise stopped instantly. All eyes turned to him, and a hush fell over the room. His green skin glimmered under the bright lights, and his sharp eyes surveyed the cadets. Astra's heart raced as he approached her. "Cadet Astra," he said sharply, Step forward." She took a deep breath and stepped forward, trying to maintain a confident posture even though her knees felt weak. Zorak towered over her, a giant compared to her slender frame. "I've heard good things about you," he continued, "but let's see if you can back them up. Show me your strength in combat." Without hesitation, Astra nodded. She had trained hard for this moment. She had practiced every move, every punch and kick. She would not back down. The other cadets watched closely, holding their breath in anticipation. Zorak took up a fighting stance, and Astra followed suit. She felt the energy in the air shift. The room was silent, except for the sound of their breathing. Astra knew she had to act quickly. She charged at Zorak, throwing a swift punch aimed at his chest. Zorak caught her fist easily in his massive hand. A smirk crossed his face, and he twisted her wrist painfully. "Is that all you've got?" he taunted, not letting go. But Astra was determined not to show her discomfort. With a sudden burst of energy, she used her other hand to push off his grip and spin around, using her momentum to deliver a roundhouse kick. The kick landed hard against Zorak's side, catching him off guard and causing him to stumble back, slightly. Impressed, the other cadets cheered. Astra felt a thrill of victory and quickly followed up with another attack. This time she aimed for his legs, executing a sweep kick. Zorak slipped, but recovered quickly, now angrier. He launched himself at her with surprising speed, trying to grab her. Astra dodged to the side, her training kicking in. She moved gracefully, her body fluid like water. Zorak, however, was relentless. He was faster than she expected. As he lunged, he reached out and slapped her hard across the face. The sound echoed in the hall, and Astra stumbled back, shocked. But in that instant, something inside her sparked. Fueled by a mix of anger and determination, she quickly regained her footing. The other cadets gasped, waiting to see what would happen next. Without thinking, Astra charged once more. In a flash, she ducked under Zorak's enormous arm and with lightning speed twisted her body to execute a powerful move she had learned in training. With a careful grip on his wrist, Astra maneuvered his arm behind his back and applied pressure. At that moment, Zorak realized she was not as weak as he initially thought. Astra's grip was strong, fierce. In just a few seconds, she pushed until she heard a sharp crack. Zorak let out a growl of pain. She had broken his wrist. The hall erupted in chaos. The other cadets were shocked and amazed. Astra had done what many thought was impossible. Among the gasps and whispers, Astra felt a surge of adrenaline flow through her body. She released Zorak's arm and stepped back, her heart racing. Zorak, now grimacing in pain, glared at her. "You think you've won?" he growled, his voice low and dangerous. "You've only just begun." But Astra stood firm. "I'm not afraid of you," she replied, her voice unwavering. "I'm here to show that humans belong in this fight too." Other cadets stepped forward, some cheering for Astra, while others looked worried, unsure if they should be inspired or scared. General Zorak took a deep breath, trying to regain his composure. He glanced around at the other cadets, seeing the potential spark of bravery among them, not just in Astra, but in all humans. He raised his uninjured hand and called for silence. "This is what I respect. Strength, determination, and the willingness to stand your ground. You've earned my admiration, Cadet Astra." In that moment, something shifted. The fear and tension in the room slowly transformed into respect. The other cadets saw Astra not just as a human, but as a warrior. Zorak smiled, albeit painfully. "The next training session will be different. You will lead your team, and we will learn from each other." Astra could hardly believe it. She had stood up to a Gorgon general and not only survived, but gained his respect. The cheers from her fellow cadets grew as they realized the significance of what had just happened. Astra knew this moment would change everything for her and her fellow humans on Astra Nova. As the session ended, Astra heard whispers of her bravery all around. She felt proud, knowing she had proven that humans could hold their own in a universe full of powerful beings. The bonds they would forge in training would lead to a future where all species could learn from one another. Astra could see it clearly now. The true strength lay in unity, no matter how different they seemed. The mess hall of the joint human-Xylos training facility buzzed with a nervous energy. Cadet Anya Petrova spooned lukewarm protein paste into her mouth, her eyes darting around the room. Humans and Xylos, an insectoid species known for their stoicism and military prowess, were attempting to integrate, a feat many considered impossible. Anya, despite her petite frame, was known for her sharp wit and even sharper reflexes, qualities that often landed her in hot water. Across the room, General Zorgon, a towering Xylos with chitinous armor and multifaceted eyes, observed the chaotic scene with disdain. He had commanded legions, conquered planets, and negotiated treaties with species beyond human comprehension. This joint training program, however, was proving to be his greatest challenge. The humans were emotional, loud, unpredictable. Zorgon's aide, a nervous Xylos named Click, scurried beside him. "General, the integration simulations have yielded less than optimal results. Human Cadet Petrova has been flagged for insubordination in 7 out of 10 scenarios." Zorgon's mandibles clicked in irritation. "Petrova. Yes, I have observed her. A disruptive element. She lacks the discipline required for interspecies cooperation." He decided to address the issue directly. Striding across the mess hall, his armored boots echoing on the metal floor, Zorgon approached Anya's table. The room fell silent. Humans and Xylos alike watched with bated breath. "Cadet Petrova," Zorgon's voice was a low, guttural rumble, translated into human tongue by a device on his chest. "Your performance in the simulations has been unsatisfactory. Your disregard for protocol is detrimental to the success of this program." Anya swallowed her protein paste. "With all due respect, General, some of those protocols are ridiculous. We're supposed to be learning to fight together, not memorizing Xylos table manners." Zorgon's multifaceted eyes narrowed. "Insubordination will not be tolerated, Cadet. This program is crucial for the survival of both our species. Your actions undermine the entire endeavor." "Then maybe," Anya retorted, her voice rising slightly, "you should try listening to what we have to say instead of just barking orders." Click gasped. No one, Xylos or human, dared to speak to General Zorgon in such a manner. Zorgon's patience, already stretched thin, snapped. In a move that violated every interspecies protocol, every rule of engagement, every unspoken agreement, he raised his hand and struck Anya across the face. The sound echoed in the sudden silence. Anya stumbled back, a red mark blooming on her cheek. The room erupted in a cacophony of gasps and shouts. Humans surged to their feet, fists clenched. Xylos soldiers instinctively reached for their weapons. But before anyone could react, Anya moved. Years of training in various martial arts, a family tradition stretching back generations, kicked in. The shock of the blow, the humiliation, the simmering resentment. It all coalesced into a single, focused point. She didn't scream. She didn't hesitate. She didn't even blink. In a blur of motion, she stepped inside Zorgon's reach, her hand shooting out to intercept his arm. Using his own momentum against him, she executed a textbook wrist lock, applying pressure with ruthless precision. Zorgon, a warrior who had faced down hordes of alien creatures, who had battled in the vacuum of space, who had stared death in the face countless times, felt a searing pain explode in his wrist. He roared, a sound of pure agony. Anya didn't relent. With a final controlled movement, she twisted. A sickening crack reverberated through the mess hall. Zorgon's roar turned into a strangled gasp. His arm went limp. He stared at Anya in disbelief. his multifaceted eyes wide with shock. Anya released his arm. Zorgon staggered back, clutching his shattered wrist. Click rushed to his side, hissing in alarm. The mess hall was silent once more, but this time the silence was different. It was a silence of awe, of disbelief, of dawning realization. Anya stood her ground, her chest heaving, her eyes blazing. "That," she said, her voice clear and strong, "is what happens when you underestimate a human." The aftermath was immediate and chaotic. Human officers rushed to restrain Anya, while Xylos medics attended to Zorgon. Accusations flew, threats were exchanged, and the joint training program teetered on the brink of collapse. Captain Eva Rostova, Anya's commanding officer, arrived on the scene, her face grim. She pulled Anya aside, away from the shouting crowd. "Petrova, what in God's name did you do?" she demanded, her voice low and urgent. "He hit me, Captain," Anya replied, her voice barely a whisper. "I defended myself." "Defended yourself? You broke the wrist of a general." "You may have just started an intergalactic war." "He started it when he laid his hand on a cadet," Anya countered. "He broke protocol. I just enforced it." Rostova sighed, rubbing her temples. She knew Anya was right, but the political ramifications were staggering. The incident sparked a series of intense negotiations between human and Xylos officials. Zorgon, his pride wounded more than his wrist, demanded Anya's immediate expulsion from the program. The humans, however, refused. They argued that Anya had acted in self-defense, and that Zorgon's actions were a clear violation of interspecies respect. The debate raged for days, threatening to unravel the fragile alliance between the two species. Finally, a compromise was reached. Anya would undergo a period of intensive anger management training, and Zorgon would issue a formal apology for his actions. The training program continued, but the atmosphere had changed. The Xylos, once dismissive of the humans, now regarded them with a newfound respect and perhaps a hint of fear. They had learned that humans, despite their emotional nature, were not to be underestimated. Anya, for her part, became a legend. She was no longer just Cadet Petrova, the troublemaker. She was Anya Petrova, the woman who broke a Xylos general's wrist in 4 seconds. She was a symbol of human resilience, of human defiance, of human strength. And as she continued her training, she knew that she had a responsibility to live up to that legend. She had shown the Xylos and the galaxy what humans were capable of. Now, she had to prove that they were also capable of something more, of understanding, of compassion, and of true interspecies cooperation. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but Anya was ready. She had faced down a general, stared down a potential war, and emerged stronger than ever. She was a human, and she would not back down. In a distant future, humans had ventured far beyond their own planet, exploring the stars and establishing colonies on various worlds. Humanity had faced many challenges, including the prospect of war with alien species. Among these species was the Creel, a formidable race known for their strength and warlike nature. On the edge of a strategic galaxy, a training academy had been established to prepare young humans for intergalactic conflicts. The academy was vast, with shimmering domes and tall towers that seemed to touch the sky. Cadets from different backgrounds trained fiercely, hoping to become elite soldiers. Among them was Cadet Emily Cross, a gifted fighter with a passion for defending her world. Emily was small for her age, but she had spirit and determination. Her instructors often praised her speed and skills, but she knew she needed to build her strength. As the academy prepared to host a joint training exercise with the Creel, excitement and apprehension filled the air. The Creel general, Arak, was known for being ruthless and had a reputation for being one of the toughest leaders in the galaxy. On the day of the training exercise, the cadets gathered in the main arena. The sun shone brightly, casting shadows on the polished floor. Emily stood beside her fellow cadets, including her best friend, Jake. Jake was tall and strong, and always looked out for Emily. Just remember, don't take it easy on them just because they're aliens, Jake said with a grin. Show them what humans can do. As Arak entered the arena, silence fell over the crowd. The alien general towered over everyone, his green skin shimmering in the sunlight. His eyes glowed with a fierce intensity, and his muscles bulged beneath his armor. Emily felt a mix of fear and excitement. This was her chance to prove herself. Before the duel began, the instructors gave a briefing on the rules. Each human cadet would face a Creel warrior, and the goal was to demonstrate skill without malice. Emily watched as the Creel warriors moved with ruthless grace. They were unlike any opponents she had faced before. When her turn came, Emily stepped forward, heart pounding. As she approached General Arak, she noticed the confident smirk on his face. "You think you can defeat me, little human?" Taunted, his voice deep and booming. Emily took a deep breath, ignoring his words. "I'm not here to lose," she replied firmly. The arena erupted with cheers and gasps from the spectators. The duel began, and Emily sprang into action. She rolled to the side, dodging a powerful swing from Arak's massive fist. Her speed surprised him. Emily quickly retaliated with a series of agile kicks, aiming for his legs. Arak responded with a swift backhand, misjudging her agility. Emily ducked low, her reflexes sharp as she avoided his strike. The duel continued with both competitors exchanging blows. Emily knew she had to use her speed to her advantage. As Arak charged, he swung again, but Emily sidestepped and seized his wrist. In a fluid motion, she twisted it sharply, and in 4 swift seconds, she felt the satisfying snap of his bone beneath her grip. The crowd gasped in disbelief. Arak howled in pain and staggered backward, clutching his injured wrist. Emily stood there, shock coursing through her entire body. She had unknowingly broken the wrist of a powerful alien general. Coach Spencer, observing from the side, rushed up to intervene. "What have you done?" shouted Coach Spencer, panic in his voice. "That wasn't supposed to happen." Emily looked around, her heart racing. The Creel warriors were now glaring at her, and whispers filled the arena. She felt both proud and terrified. The spectators remained silent, a mix of awe and fear hanging in the air. General Arak growled in anger, finally regaining his composure. "You will pay for that, human," he warned, his voice a low growl. "You think you can challenge the Creel without consequences?" A moment of tension hung between them. Emily stood her ground, refusing to back down. She knew she had surprised him, and she wasn't going to let fear dictate her actions. Before anything could escalate, an officer stepped forward, attempting to de-escalate the situation. "General, we don't want any violence beyond the training exercise," the officer said. "This was supposed to be a demonstration of skill, not a real battle." With a frustrated grunt, Arak turned his fiery gaze to the officer. "Skill, or not, she humiliated me. You humans simply cannot control your pride." Emily felt her confidence falter for a moment but held strong. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said, her voice steady. "I just wanted to show that humans are capable of fighting back." The audience murmured, realizing that Emily had won the respect of many there, even if it had come at a great cost. The Creel general, though injured, weighed the situation. He slowly drew back, recognizing her bravery and skill. "Very well, Cadet Cross," Arak said begrudgingly. "You have earned a measure of my respect. We will train together, and you will learn what it means to be a warrior." He extended his unbroken hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Emily took it. In that moment, a bridge formed between 2 worlds. What began with a challenge had turned into an unexpected alliance. As the crowd erupted into cheers, Emily felt a swell of pride. She had not only survived, but had shown strength in a way no one had expected. From that day forward, Emily and Arak trained side by side, pushing each other to new heights. They learned the value of teamwork and the importance of understanding each other's strengths and weaknesses. Together, they would face new challenges that lay beyond the stars, uniting humans and Creel in a way neither had anticipated. Their story would become one of many tales shared throughout the Academy, an epic saga of resilience, strength, and the courage to stand up against the odds. In the year 2493, Earth had become a member of the Galactic Federation, a vast alliance of various alien species. Humanity had made remarkable progress in technology and military strength. Space had turned into a new frontier, filled with challenges, unknowns, and new allies and enemies. Among humans, the Federation established a training academy on the advanced planet of Vortex Prime, renowned for its breathtaking landscapes and strange inhabitants. Cadet Layla Jones was a bright star among her peers. She signed up for the academy, with dreams of becoming a starship captain. Her determination was unmatched, and her skills in combat and strategy put her ahead of most other cadets. Layla came from a long line of military heroes, and she felt the weight of that legacy on her shoulders. Each night, she would stare at the stars and think about the adventures that awaited her. The Academy's impressive training program included various alien species in leadership roles. One of the most feared and respected was General Xirax, hulking creature from the Zoltan race. He stood over 8 feet tall with thick green skin, sharp claws, and bright yellow eyes. Xirax was an expert in strategy and combat, and had led numerous battles to victory. All cadets respected him, but feared him at the same time. One fateful afternoon, the cadets gathered in the main training hall for an exercise. A tense atmosphere filled the room as General Xirax walked in, his presence commanding immediate attention. He had a reputation for being strict and impulsive, which added weight to the day's events. "Cadets," he began, his voice booming, "today, you will learn what it means to face real confrontation. You will experience a combat simulation where teamwork is crucial, but individuality can lead to your downfall." Layla felt a rush of excitement, mixed with anxiety. She wanted to show her abilities, but knew she had to be careful around Xirax. As he explained the rules of the simulation, Layla listened carefully. The exercise involved both physical and mental challenges, pitting teams against each other. After the briefing, teams were formed. Layla was chosen to lead a squad, entailing both responsibility and pressure. Her team consisted of 3 members: Malik, a quick-thinking technician, Susie, a skilled sharpshooter, and Derek, who specialized in hand-to-hand combat. Together, they could become a formidable force, but they had to work in harmony. However, the real surprise came when General Xirax announced that he himself would participate in the simulation, leading the opposing team. Layla's heart sank. She had heard tales of how ruthless Xirax could be during training. She worried about how her team would perform against such an imposing figure. As the simulation began, the room transformed into an arena filled with obstacles and hiding spots. Layla instructed her team to take cover while observing the movements of the alien general. It was clear he was already strategizing, and the tension grew unbearable. Suddenly, Xirax charged toward their position, moving swiftly with surprising agility. Malik shouted a warning, and everyone took their positions, ready for the confrontation. Layla decided to face him head-on, summoning her courage. "Let's go," she yelled, and the team sprang into action. In an attempt to catch Layla off guard, Xirax launched himself toward her. He swung a massive arm toward her, intending to strike. Layla had practiced hand-to-hand combat countless times, and she stayed focused. She ducked under the blow and aimed a quick jab straight to his wrist. In those 4 seconds that followed, everything went quiet. Layla's fist connected with Xirax's wrist, and the clash echoed throughout the arena. In an instant, there was a horrible snap, and General Xirax howled in shock. The alien general stumbled, clutching his injured arm. Time seemed to freeze as all eyes turned towards the astonishing scene. Layla had not only defended herself, but had taken down a mighty general. General Xirax staggered back, shocked at the striking force of the human cadet. The other cadets gasped in disbelief, and even the remaining generals observing the simulation exchanged incredulous glances. Layla's heart raced, a mixture of triumph and dread swelling within her. The commanding aura of General Xerax was melting away, replaced by anger and humiliation. "You insolent human," he growled, his yellow eyes narrowing. "You think you can defeat me?" But Layla stood tall, defiance igniting in her as she replied, "I just did. Perhaps you underestimated us." Surprisingly, the other team's members backed Xerax up, unable to believe the impact of the situation. Malik, Susie, and Derek joined Layla, forming a united front. They would not let fear take over. This was their moment to shine. Before Xerax could gather himself, the simulation abruptly ended as the central room dimmed, and the voice of the controlling AI declared them victorious. But this victory felt different. It was not just about winning. It was a testament to the power of unity and courage against all odds. Several minutes passed, and as the adrenaline faded, the realization of what had happened began to settle. General Xerax, still nursing his broken wrist, glanced at the cadets with a newfound respect. "You've proved yourselves today," he said, surprising everyone. "Though I cannot condone violence against a superior, your skills are impressive." The atmosphere shifted, and rather than feeling anger, respect filled the air. The other cadets cheered for Layla and her team, celebrating their boldness and determination. Xerax nodded slowly, acknowledging their potential and perhaps learning a vital lesson in humility himself. Days passed, and Layla found herself under a new kind of mentorship from General Xerax. His broken wrist had healed, and he now sought to understand humans better. He recognized her skill and bravery, and he wanted her team to help train others. Layla had not just made a name for herself, but had paved the way for greater cooperation and understanding between humans and aliens in the Federation. They forged an unlikely bond, a camaraderie built through challenge and respect. Earth had chosen to stand alongside the Galactics, not just as warriors, but also as friends, proving that courage and unity could bridge even the greatest gaps between species. Layla felt proud. The stars were no longer just a dream. They were a promise, waiting to be fulfilled. In the year 2242, Earth wasn't alone anymore. We were part of a big group called the Galactic Federation. This meant meeting aliens, learning their ways, and sometimes fighting alongside them. Our young people joined the Federation Defense Force, training to be peacekeepers among the stars. One of these young people was Cadet Ava Rostova. She was strong, smart, and had a spirit tougher than any metal. Eva wasn't the tallest or the broadest, but her eyes held a fire that could make even the toughest alien think twice. The training academy was on a neutral planet, a place where different alien species could come together and learn to protect the galaxy. There were blue-skinned Andorans, insect-like Cathar, and the mighty Gornak, who looked like walking mountains. And then there were the humans, adaptable and quick-witted. Overseeing the training was General Vorlag, a Gornak warrior, respected and feared throughout the Federation. He was huge, with thick armor-like skin and eyes that could pierce through steel. Vorlag believed in discipline and strength. He thought humans were soft and needed to be toughened up. From day one, Vorlag was hard on the human cadets, especially Eva. He pushed them harder, criticized them more, and always seemed to be watching, waiting for them to fail. Eva knew Vorlag was trying to break her, but she wouldn't let him. She trained harder, stayed later, and always gave her best. One day, during a hand-to-hand combat exercise, Vorlag decided to step in. The cadets were paired up, practicing takedowns and defenses. Ava was up against a Cathar, a tough opponent with sharp claws. She held her own, using her agility to avoid the Cathar's attacks and landing a few good hits of her own. Vorlag watched with a critical eye. When the exercise ended, he stepped into the ring, his massive form casting a shadow over Ava. "Rostova," he boomed, "you fight like a child. Weak, slow, predictable. Eva stood tall, meeting his gaze. "I'm still learning, General," she replied, her voice steady. "Learning?" Vorlag scoffed. "You humans have been learning for decades. You're still soft. I'll show you what real strength is." Before Eva could react, Vorlag moved with surprising speed. His large hand shot out and slapped her across the face. The force of the blow knocked her off her feet, and she landed hard on the mat. A hush fell over the training hall. Everyone stared in disbelief. A Gornak general had struck a cadet. It was unheard of. Vorlag stood over Eva, his eyes blazing. "Get up, Rostova!" he snarled. "Show me you have the will to fight!" Eva slowly rose to her feet, her cheek burning. She looked at Vorlag, her eyes now cold and hard. Something inside her had snapped. This wasn't about training anymore. This was about respect, about proving herself, about showing Vorlag that humans weren't soft. "With all due respect, General," she said, her voice low but clear, "I'm going to break your wrist." Vorlag laughed, a deep, rumbling sound. "You? Break my wrist? You're nothing but a—" He didn't finish the sentence. In that moment, Eva moved like a blur. Years of training, combined with a surge of adrenaline, made her faster and stronger than she had ever been. She stepped inside Vorlag's guard, grabbing his arm with both hands. Using a technique she had learned from an ancient earth martial art, she twisted and leveraged his wrist with incredible force. There was a sickening crack. Vorlag roared in pain, his eyes wide with shock. He stumbled backward, clutching his wrist. Eva stood her ground, her stance firm, her eyes locked on Vorlag. The silence in the training hall was deafening. No one could believe what they had just witnessed. A human cadet, a small, seemingly fragile human, had just broken the wrist of a Gornak general. Vorlag stared at Eva, his face a mask of fury and disbelief. You dare!" he growled. "You attacked me, General," Eva replied, her voice calm. "I defended myself." The other instructors rushed forward, tending to Vorlag. The medical team was called and the general was taken away, still cursing and yelling. Eva stood alone in the training hall, the eyes of every cadet on her. Some looked at her with awe, others with fear, and some with admiration. She had done the impossible. She had stood up to Vorlag and won. The news of what happened spread like wildfire throughout the academy and beyond. Some saw Eva as a hero, a symbol of human strength and resilience. Others saw her as a rogue element, a threat to the established order. The Federation Council launched an investigation into the incident. Eva was questioned, her actions scrutinized. She explained her side of the story, how Vorlag had provoked her, how she had acted in self-defense. The council was divided. Some members, mostly from species who had clashed with the Gornak in the past, supported Eva. Others, fearing the wrath of the Gornak, wanted her punished. In the end, they reached a compromise. Eva was cleared of any wrongdoing, but she was also reassigned to a different training program, one focused on diplomacy and conflict resolution. It was a way to keep her out of trouble, to channel her rebellious spirit into something more productive. Eva accepted the decision, understanding the delicate balance of power within the Federation. She knew she had made a statement, that she had shown the galaxy that humans were not to be underestimated. Years later, Eva became a respected diplomat, mediating disputes between warring species and helping to maintain peace in the galaxy. She never forgot her time at the Academy, or the day she broke General Vorlag's wrist. It was a reminder that strength came in many forms, and that sometimes the smallest person could make the biggest difference. And as for General Vorlag, he never quite recovered from the humiliation. He remained a powerful figure, but he always carried a subtle unease around humans, a grudging respect for their unpredictable nature. He learned that day that underestimating anyone, no matter how small or weak they seemed, could be a painful mistake. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and everyone had their own way of surviving.